TRT takes time to work, but it also takes time to do the work. Guys need to know that they're not alone, they're not defective, it's not because they're failures, it's because their machinery has not been functioning the way that it should to be able to fulfill the role that they need to fulfill in society. The problem is that if the machinery is broken and defective, it's kind of like you're trying to be a race car driver in a faulty vehicle. That can be very psychologically damaging over time.
I guess what was the driving factor in making you kind of tell other people like, hey, this is why testosterone is so freaking important?
Yeah, that's a very good question. There's a couple of things that tie into that. So I was originally very interested in psychiatry, particularly in why so many people just weren't doing well. Low-grade depression, low-grade anxiety. There were a lot of treatments and protocols and recommendations based on major psychiatric illness, but not a lot of the stuff that was impacting so many people day to day who maybe, didn't want to self-delete, but didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. So when I had my brain injury when I was in my mid-20s, it really caught me off guard. And one of the challenges that I realized in hindsight, looking back on it, was that I hadn't really been through anything difficult in my life before that had given me the skill and the resilience to be able to push through and overcome adversity. So it wasn't until I started testosterone treatment that I felt my mindset shift more towards, I want to take a swing at this and actually see if I can come back from this and recover. And I was very fortunate that I was able to, but it took so much more grit and determination than I even really thought I was capable of. And in the recent years since, anxiety and stress, which is what I'm speaking about on the main day, is one of, if not the most prevalent issues that men are complaining about. And I think Jordan Peterson puts it best where he says, competence creates confidence. And this is one of the biggest struggles, is that when a man is going through his formative years, like I very strongly disagree that a man is an adult at 18. You can legally access some stuff, but your brain doesn't finish developing until you're 25. I think we become adults at 30. And I think the big challenge coming up for these younger guys is that they're at a point in their life where they haven't formed their identity, they haven't really mastered a skill, they haven't mastered themselves, but they're in a situation where their androgen levels are also that of a much older man. And I think this creates a lot of problems because it typically takes multiple decades for a man to be confident and resilient and able to express the best version of himself in life. And if everything's going well hormonally, that point that a man reaches that will be right when his testosterone level starts to drop off. So as he gets older and he settles into, taking it easy and kicking back, this is not the end of the world. But when someone's coming up with low testosterone when it's supposed to be higher and they're supposed to be making their mark in the world and be, capable of overcoming risks and adversity and really being able to push forward, I think I know because I've seen it, it's very detrimental in terms of the trajectory of where they end up. Because if you don't have that drive and resilience and motivation and just the capacity to be able to take a swing at things, it's going to drastically impact the choices that you make, the path that you end up on, and the decisions that ultimately lead to you living a depressing life. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that is drastically overlooked. And that's why I like to say that, TRT takes time to work, but it also takes time to do the work. So yeah, that's what I've seen a lot of working with younger men. And that's why I get up on stage and teach these things, because these guys need to know that they're not alone. They're not defective. It's not because they're failures. It's because their machinery has not been functioning the way that it should to be able to fulfill the role that they need to fulfill in society.
And it seems like they're like young men are being attacked from multiple different angles, right? Like we can talk about the environmental things in regards to like their testosterone levels, which we should definitely get into that. But also it seems like men aren't being held responsible to be adults until significantly later now. Right, you're looking at like my parents' generation, like they were married at like 18 and living in their own like house by themselves, like by 20. Right, fast forward to today, and we got 40-year-olds that are still living at home. Right, so what is that doing to their confidence and potentially their testosterone levels as well? But again, when you look at all these factors, it seems like again the environmental things crushing the testosterone levels, but then also like I guess as a society, we're not expecting enough of men. And it's like, again, like I said, it's a really tough spot to put young men in. So with all that in mind, what are some things that men can do, right, especially early on, to start to get some of that momentum and start to build some of that confidence?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I like the actionable stuff, because it's all well and good to present philosophy and to present these different rationales and perspectives on things. But if people don't have an executable strategy on what to actually do, it doesn't really mean much. So the one thing that I think is important is that if you are you and I am me, we are alone with our thoughts 24/7. We know if we are putting on a facade. We know if we keep our word to ourselves. We know if we're hitting snooze. We know if we're eating cheat meals when we shouldn't. All of these things, I think, can really weigh on people's conscience. It can be very difficult to lay your head down at night and go to sleep if you haven't achieved everything that you set out to achieve that day. And I think that's one of the most common causes of anxiety and insomnia is people are very self-critical, but they're self-critical because they know that they are objectively not living up to who they could be. The problem is that if the machinery is broken and defective, it's kind of like you're trying to be a race car driver in a faulty vehicle. And I think that can be very psychologically damaging over time because you're not developing the self-esteem, because you don't have that proof of success, that proof of actually being able to do what you want to do and what you want to achieve. So I think there are some good strategies to look at. I think firstly, people should really focus on mastering something. If someone is a welder or if someone's an electrician, if you are a phenomenal welder or electrician, if you walk into a room that has nothing to do with your trade, you're still going to exude and have more confidence because you know that as an individual, you have mastery of some area of skill that is valuable to society. So I think people should really focus on not trying to start multiple different things and be a jack of all trades, master of none, is find something that you like or something that allows you to earn a living that you don't hate and get really fucking good at it. Like, I can imagine that you doing what you do because you have the knowledge and the proof that you are an expert in your field. That confidence translates to when you're ordering at a restaurant or when you're going into a social interaction, because you have been able to move forward and succeed in a field that previously you were one day a beginner at, you didn't know anything about. So I think that's very important. The other thing that I really like, that I basically prescribe as a health coach, is I like people to practice mindfulness and I like people to practice martial arts. And this combination of experiential therapy, I think, is very valuable. And I don't recommend people get into sparring and actually fighting because I work with brain injuries. That's not a good idea. But simulating violence with pad work and having a male mentor to take you outside your comfort zone. If you wake up in the morning and you get overwhelmed by opening your email inbox on a Monday morning and having a messy room and needing to do the basics, if that pushes your stress capacity, it's not because that's too hard, it's because you're too soft. And going and doing some form of martial arts, again, just pad work or just basic drills, once or twice a week gives you something that is far more acutely stressful than anything else you're doing, which reprograms your sensitivity to stress. It basically gives you better stress tolerance because by association, all of those things are not stressful at all. They just require putting one foot in front of the other. And then when you're looking at mindfulness, you're basically learning to focus your attention on what you want to focus it on, which ultimately gives you the ability to do what you need to do and not what you want to do. And if you're able to do what you need to do, not what you want to do for a prolonged period of time, this ultimately gives you the foundation to actually be disciplined. And if you lack the skill to actually have discipline in the first place, not only is your life going to become a chaotic mess as your responsibility goes up as you get older, but you're also going to feel very inadequate. You're going to feel like a failure because you're saying, I can't even do the basic things I need to do. And if you can have that balance of increasing your stress threshold and improving your ability to focus and take action on tasks, I think that leads to good outcomes.
Very well said. That was fucking great, P. You crushed that.
If you've just started TRT, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and confused. There's a lot of new territory to cover, and there is a lot of conflicting information. I wrote TRT 101 so that you can have everything that you need to know in an instruction manual in one place that you can refer back to, that you can have all the questions answered before they even come up. TRT 101 is my best practice approach for TRT from start to finish, and it contains everything that you need to avoid all the challenges and pitfalls that I've seen come up in my clients over the last 5 years. You can check it out via the link below.
Sorry, I had to kind of get out of the interview for a second there. But speaking on more tangible things, everybody watching, everybody here, we all kind of already understand that, like, especially here in America, the testosterone ranges are so broad that you could feel like shit. You can have terrible testosterone, but still be within range and not get that prescribed. We all kind of already know that. Now, for somebody that did get that prescription, right, we kind of already know what that prescription is going to look like. It's going to look like 200 milligrams, 3 shots per week. If stuff starts to get a little funny, maybe some DHEA. If they're not at a good clinic, some anastrozole, right? Like, we kind of already know that. But what if I'm taking, we'll say 200, allegedly, this is not medical advice, don't do anything that we're about to say. I'm still feeling like shit, man, but I'm doing the thing that's supposed to make me feel good. Where do you think people that are getting, people that are prescribing, where they're missing the mark when it comes to, like, well, he was at 200 nanograms per deciliter. We got him on 200 milligrams, and now he's at 1,200. I did my job. Maybe he's just not working out hard enough. Maybe he's not getting enough sleep, because I got his levels up. He should be fine, but that person still feels like shit. What is that prescribing doctor missing?
The problem is that they're looking at a very complex series of interconnected systems through a myopic lens. So testosterone is not the only thing that impacts how you feel and how you perform. It is a piece of the puzzle. And the problem is that it is difficult, and it requires a very in-depth intrinsic understanding of human biology, which I think a lot of practitioners put in the too hard bucket. You know, they get paid either way. They want to do the easiest job. They want to get home, and they want to basically, call it a day. And I get that. People are people. But if people are wanting to actually deliver the outcomes for their patients that makes them subjectively feel better, but also are objectively healthier, they have to look at every series of systems in the body, but not just individually, but how they're interconnected, kind of like the engine of a car. So practitioners have to be doing comprehensive blood evaluations to test all systems in the body, all hormone markers, all comprehensive panels, and then they have to cross-reference this with the patient's lifestyle, the patient's psychology, the patient's goals, and basically see, is there another biological parameter going on here that needs to be diagnosed, treated, and resolved? If that's not, and everything is smooth sailing, it can often be a psychological issue. And testosterone gives a man the foundation to repair his psychology, but it doesn't rebuild the psychology for him. If a man brings his testosterone levels up to, double the top of the reference range, it's not instantly going to give him courage and bravery and determination and stress resilience and all of these things. It's going to give him the capacity that if he does the activities to build those traits and values, they will respond properly. If he rebuilds the house, now that the foundation is set, the house will stay up and stand tall, but he actually has to go through and do that work. And if he doesn't do that and is still expecting the results, it can be a misalignment of expectations if he's not actually understanding that and he's not taught that, which the practitioner has a responsibility to educate on. And if he knows that and he's still expecting to get those results either way, then that's an entitlement mentality, which never works out either.
I got his levels up. He should be fine, but that person still feels like shit. What is that prescribing doctor missing?
The thing that they don't realize is because they're basically now putting a sports car engine into a piece of shit Suzuki Swift that needs to be serviced, is that because that optimal testosterone level is not supposed to be there, it's not going to metabolize and be absorbed properly. If people are wanting to actually deliver the outcomes for their patients that makes them feel better, healthier, they have to look at every series of systems in the body